Here I'm giving just a brief overview of two different thin rip guides. The brand new one that Rockler has had out, I'm not sure exactly how long, but in the last year or so, that has a way to measure the distance from the blade itself on it versus a Fulton thin rip jig. I'd actually gotten this one as a Christmas present, and it's an excellent jig as far as build quality and everything. It does feels great. As far as both of these jigs, they do have a couple little ribs on the head of the bolt here that you have to make sure in their correct position in order for them to get tight in the slot like they should. The Fulton thin rip does feel a little heavier, but on my particular skill job site saw, it does kind of have to get out here all the way. Not that you need any more than that distance right there, obviously, but puts it onto the edge just a little bit. But when you do tighten it, it gets good and snug. Even out here, it's not really going to go anywhere, provided you got those ribs on the head of the bolt in the correct position. If you don't, this particular saw will definitely move around a little bit. Kind of some innovative ideas here as far as the new Rockler. Their old one, very similar to the Fulton thin rip, but you can essentially just take this and it will line it. You can line it up, the bushing here, so that it is flush with the head, the teeth on your saw. You can then take and zero the little gauge here. So it's set at 0. And then if you say want to make a 1/4 inch cut, you can bring it back into position. Obviously make sure that you have it lined up correctly and snug there. I've already done this. Bring it back at least 3 inches or so from your saw blade, which is not plugged in. And then say if you want to make a 1/4 to 1/2 inch cut, you just move it back to the 1/4 inch. And I mean, this is not going to be super fine accurate for what I'm doing. It will work very nicely. And this here is more of a heavy plastic here than this one all being metal. This one definitely feels heavier, but this still feels stable. And again, as long as you have the ribs in there correctly, it's not going anywhere. And I wish they did put a few more ribs on this, because it can get out of alignment just a little bit there. Then you have to position it just a little. And this really should keep 0 here, as long as you don't change the position of this any. Just move the face in and out. Each time you put it back in the slot here, should pretty much line up. And then feels good and snug. Again, if you have those little ridges on the head off just a little bit on either one of these, it's not going to set in the slot nearly as snug. So I'll set up here and we'll try a few rips on this and see how it does for both of them. Did just fine. Any issues there I would relate to just my skill being a job site table saw and the blade I have on it over anything else. The measurements seem to work well. So now we will set up for the thin rip jig by Fulton. And the one thing I think this should probably do is you probably don't even need to set it up off from the blade each time, because I think once you get it set, put it back in there, as long as you leave this marker here set on here each time you move it back and forth, it should actually be pretty close. We're actually going to cheat here. The one thing I would say on my particular saw, I have to bring this particular Fulton out a long ways to get it to lock or to push over here, and I'm only taking a 1/4 inch rip here, but once it's in, seems good. And I do probably need to move that ahead a little. That's good. So as far as doing their job, both of them do perfectly fine, do an excellent job. Just as far as the Rockler, you got just a little more room there. On my particular saw, if you actually had a regular table saw, large table saw, the like a saw stop or something like that, a lot of times this groove is over a little more to the right, and you have less distance here as well. So overall, I'd say both of them are great. I kind of like this one just simply because of the measurements. Now, how accurate that's going to be over time or not, for what I do, will probably work very well. Thanks.